you've been given the power to represent us as the people. The people are asking questions. In fact, the family is asking questions. Was it fair on you, our representatives, for you to stop the former president from traveling? The people need answers, Honorable Minister. What law were you using to stop the former president?
I can see you want to insist, Andrew,
to go and attend.
Yes,
his medicals.
Yes, you want to insist on,
Isn't that
on a matter.
Minister?
You want to insist, Andrew, on a matter which I have given counsel over. As I said, there are different viewpoints. You cannot use a platform of this nature. You cannot use the platform of the demise of our former president to put forward certain discussions and arguments. It is morally incorrect for us, for me, to do that. What you are saying want answers. Perhaps I would take a position that would be different from that which is put forward. Would that be befitting for a send-off for our head of state? Would that be befitting for the bereaved family to now be engaged in a back and forth? I don't think that we are morally entitled to do such. Again, I repeat my counsel. Such conversations are likely to bring division. So I'll speak to the people of Zambia out there. What we must be doing is reflecting deeply. What we must be doing is mourning our president with respect. Questions will always be there, and there will always be a time for those questions to be answered. The issue is this the right time for me to seem to take a political stance and take a position as to whether government did X, Y, or Z? No. There's a clear answer to that. My being on this program, my coming here, is as part of a function of government to explain that, as you have mentioned in your intro, the state has taken a position that there will be a state funeral. And that was announced in the correct way by the Secretary of the Cabinet. The people of Zambia will now, of course, know that the late former president will be given a send-off in accordance with the practice that we've had. Let me ask it in this way, Honourable Minister. Was there any form of assistance that was offered to the former president? You're asking the same question in a different way, and I think I have responded. I think the answer must be yes, government did assist, or government did not assist. I think I have responded. Did government assist the former president? What are you trying to obtain by this repeated line of questioning? Which I have responded to. Did government help? In the way that I have said we must deal with these matters. As government, did we help the former president? So if you ask the same question repeatedly, it will not change my answer. My answer is very clear and to the point. My other question was whether you mistreated him. And to the point. My question now is that whether you helped him. No. You've asked the same question. It's the same thing that you're saying over again in the same way. Let me repeat my response to you respectively. Respectfully, beg pardon. We must focus at this time. If there are questions that need to be asked, there will be a time for those questions to be asked and answered. I hope that I'm being absolutely clear. Out of respect and decorum for the process, the period that we are in, we must be able to take a point of view as a people that at some point you respect the time that you are in. What you are asking to do, to go into nitty-gritty and to go into whether or not X, Y, or Z was done, it's not the way we do things as an African people, as a Zambian people. That is not how we unite ourselves. That is not how we bring ourselves together. You will agree with me, like I said earlier, in times of mourning, the first point of call, can we come together and deal with the problem at hand and see off the deceased in a way that is befitting. And by the way, when I say a way that is befitting, it is all of us that look forward I'll be coming to that later. It's all of us that look forward to be put to rest in a dignified and proper manner. I would not subscribe to people asking questions and seeming to get into conflict and division at the time that my funeral will be taking place. Let's talk about, again, your trip. For example, yes, to South Africa, Honourable Minister.
obviously you had among the functions, among the issues that were handed over to you by us as a people was to see how we can repatriate our former president back, to our country, Zambia. The family has given its position that they would want him to be repatriated privately, the way he went to South Africa as an ordinary citizen privately. What is the government's position over the decision that the family has made to have the former president repatriated privately?
Yes, as you say, the family has given its position. I think government's position has been explained by the Secretary of the Cabinet in terms of the following steps that were outlined or explained by him, that national mourning has begun today, the 8th, or Sunday the 8th of June 2025, and that there will be a funeral service for the public at Belvedere Lodge, and that the remains are expected to come into the country on Wednesday. So the positions have been explained by the Secretary to the Cabinet officially. The remaining details, if there is more to be given, which of course we will expect in terms of what is to follow in the intervening period and going forward, will be explained by Secretary of the Cabinet as his function and role. So again, you are going back to the question that you asked to talk about the content and detail of our conversations, and I did explain to you from the perspective of respect for the bereaved family and for the deceased that these are matters which, and of course as a matter of process, these are matters, the nitty-gritty, the details of what will actually be done, when and how, other than also stating that what follows the state funeral is that full military honors, for example, would be given for the late former president. I think those details, which are a matter of course in terms of the precedents that has been followed, are there for the public to understand and appreciate. But for me to go into conversations and say party X said this, party Y said that, is not appropriate. And I would like to take the opportunity, by the way, Andrew, to also mention an important factor, why in fact the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and myself as minister took lead of that delegation. You recall that the late former president passed on in a foreign country, and naturally the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will play a critical role, one, in engaging the host government. And I would like to say that I'd use the platform to thank the government of the Republic of South Africa, my counterpart, Minister Ronald Lamola, for the support that they have rendered throughout this process, and that they continue to render. Certainly our counterparts in South Africa have shown Ubuntu. They've shown the graciousness that we expect to see in situations such as these, and of course passed on condolences to the people of Zambia for the demise of the former president of the Republic.
Well, that's good you've answered that, because I think there's also many schools of thought that suggested why the minister went instead of the Secretary of the Cabinet to have these discussions with the family. You speak of giving a dignified funeral to the former head of state. How does a dignified funeral look like? But also, on top of that, I'd like to find out, is government contemplating taking the body of the remains of the former president across the country, like how we did to President Patrick Manawasa, for people to give their last respect?
Yes, thank you very much, Andrew. Again, those are matters for further discussion and consideration. But I would like to make a distinction between, of course, the immediate past president who was not in service, whereas with President Manawasa, may so rest in peace, was in service at the time that decision was made. But of course, it is not for me, as I said earlier, to start to fill in those details, because these are discussions that are ongoing. You asked the question, what does a dignified send-off look like? We could look at, for example, the send-off of our other former presidents. President Kaunda was given what all of us Zambians appreciated as a dignified send-off. That is what it looks like, with military honors and with the cortege and so on and so forth. But again, Costa, let us not forget that this period is one in which we say our farewells to our former president, and not one in which we enter into even political discourse or anything of that nature. It wouldn't be befitting at all.
I know you don't want us to drag this issue into a political discourse, but is it true? I don't know if you're going to answer this question, that as you went to South Africa, one of the issues that you spoke about is the fact that President Edgar Lungu wished that government does not take part, and does not take over his funeral. Is it true?
Is that another way of asking this question as to whether we should go into details? I think you talked about the announcements that have been made, at least on the part of the family, and I also referred to the announcement that Secretary of the Cabinet Patrick Chagwa made. In your explanation of the family's statement, you did allude to the fact that there will be a state funeral. So I don't know whether that question really is either here or there, given the fact that already the nation has been updated that there will be a state funeral. State funeral, of course, is run by government.
Today is the official state funeral start. The official funeral starts today.
The national mourning.
The national mourning starts today, and government, you as government, have given a position where the funeral is going to take place from Belvedere in Kabulonga. Doesn't this create a contradiction with what the family, would have loved, the funeral to look like, in terms of where the funeral takes place from? Didn't you in your discussion reach a point where you agreed together with the family that we would like this location to be the official funeral location?
Andrew, there is no contradiction. Again, I know you want as much as possible to draw certain inferences, but again, there is precedence that has been set. This would not be the first time that a funeral of very high level, and more importantly a funeral of a former president, is being held at Belvedere Lodge. And again, it's a sign of us learning from where we have been and trying as much as possible to ensure that there is a clear precedent of how we deal with the demise of people of high standing, such as our former presidents. This is not new. It is not the first time it has happened. There will be a book of condolences that will be opened, and that of course then means that the public would be able to pay their respects in a way that is befitting of a former head of state, like has happened in the past. I don't think any of us would want to detract or take away from what we have set as a people of Zambia, ourselves, as the way we send off our former heads of state. This is what we have agreed. Perhaps maybe what we should be looking at is if there any improvement in how we can send off our former heads of state. But to detract from that by saying we'll do things in a particular way, which is not how we ourselves have determined we want them done, again, we would ask ourselves, why do we want to move away from what we have done always? Why do we want to change in a backward fashion? I think it is only proper that those that want to go and mourn the president at an official place that is designated for that purpose, and will be able to sign their book of condolences whilst there, therefore allowing us as Zambians to express ourselves in a sending off our former head of state.
President Edgar Lungu ran a government that you took over from Honorable Minister. How best, as government, do you think this former president will be remembered?
Well, how best is, as I said already, through deep reflection, through a proper send-off, through focusing on understanding and learning as a people where we come together, where we unite, where we can be strong, even in the face of different points of view. I think that would be a befitting sort of a send-off legacy. If then we as a people, no matter our particular inclinations, are able to say that in this moment we stand together, we mourn together, we send off our former head of state together in unity. Again, regardless of any differences or perceived differences amongst us as people. Forget the political players, but even amongst us, let's not forget that out there, Zambians are grieving. Out there, Zambians are looking at this moment as a moment in history, and this should be an opportunity for us to stand together.
I asked that question in regards to the reason I said that you took over from him is obviously you understand better his legacy because you took over a government that he ran. I know you are different political lenses, but what type of legacy in terms of government does he leave behind in his death?
And I think that is not for us as administrators to answer. And this is the point I was making, and thank you for putting it in a different way. It is for the people of Zambia to sit and reflect. I keep on using the same expression on the legacy, on any lessons we have learned, on any way in which we would want to express to one another how we should continue to live as a people. I think for us all, that should be the goal. That should be our current focus in terms of how we deal with the difficult situations such as this one. That is our duty as Zambians, much as it is the duty of government to see to it that the processes that are required to be taken for the proper send-off of the president, the former president, are.
Did you have, but as a person, did you have a relationship with President Edgar Lungu? Was it that you spoke to President Edgar Lungu?
Well, of course, I'm the late former president was a legal practitioner, and from that perspective, we had interaction as legal practice. I think from the perspective that you ask me in a personal capacity, I would speak to that because yes, thank you.
I think the reason I asked that is because to hear, you perhaps shared with during his time that he was on the face of the earth.
Yes, and as I mentioned, since you're asking a personal question, yes. The memories are those in our practice as legal practitioners, and we have different, of course, much younger at the bar than the late former